So we're opening the curtain and closing it? So we'll be up there until the scrolls are...
So they're going to have a towel.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. Interesting to have a Saturday service on a Monday afternoon. But we're delighted to be here with all of you. And we're going to go ahead and begin not with the Torah service, but actually with something that's very special to the Jaffee family, a beautiful tradition, and going from generation to generation. If you want to come up.
Hine matov u'manayim. How wonderful it is when brothers and sisters and family can finally be together. And one of the things we're so happy to be able to do is for Noah to receive her talit in person. Her grandmother, Grandma Kathy Jaffee, is going to explain the significance of the talit.
Well, yes. So I won't describe everything that's on here. There's an explanation in your booklet that you can read. I just will say this is something I have loved doing since I made, where's Brian? Brian's bar mitzvah talit was the first one, and then Mark's for our 25th anniversary, and then each of the girls for their bat mitzvahs. One thing I do want you to know is that on the back of Noah's talit, on the Atarah, the collar, it says Sadik Sadik Terduf. It means justice, justice, thou shalt pursue. And Noah and Rachel actually both have the same one on theirs. They chose it. And one of the reasons they chose it is because they knew that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has this saying in her office hanging on the wall. And they said, if it's good enough for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that's what we want. And so I would like to present this. Can somebody hold this? To Noah. And what I want you to remember, sweetheart, is every time you envelop yourself in this talit, you not only are enveloping yourself in the love of Hashem, but know that Grandpa's and mine and the love of your whole family envelops you. Mazel tov.
And we'll do the bracha together, honey. Why don't you take it off and you look at the Atorah. Okay. We'll say it together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lihitatef b'tzitzit. Kiss. 2 kisses. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Very nice. So Noah, now that you have a new talit, you want to give it a try out here with Ein Kamocha? We're going to begin our service formally on page 168 in the Siddur, Lev Shalem, page 168 with the Torah service, beginning with Ein Kamocha.
Ein kamocha b'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'maasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshotecha b'chol dor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai hilach le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'olam lo yiten Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom Av harachamim heitiva b'rtzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Kivecha levad batachnu Melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim.
We rise.
Vayhi binso Aharon Vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai Veyafutsu oivecha Veyanusu mesanecha Mipanecha Ki mitzion Tetzei Torah Ki mitzion Tetzei Torah Udevar Adonai miYerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Adonai miYerushalayim Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Adonai miYerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Li'amo Yisrael b'kedushato
Berich Shemeh
Page 170.
Be'anarachet Ve'lishme Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Emar Tushbechan Be'anarachet Be'anarachet Ve'lishme Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Emar Tushbechan Yehi Ra'ava ותפתח ליבי באורייתא, ותשלים משאלין דליבי, וליבה דכל עמך ישראל, לטוב ולחיי ולשלום.
Amen. Page 171.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shema.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shema.
Gadlul Adonai iti uneromama Shemo Yachdav.
והגבורה והתפארת והנצח והוד כי כל בארץ ככל בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה והמין נעשה לכל ראש רוממו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו וישתחוו לאדון רגליו קדוש הוא רוממו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו וישתחוו להר קדשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב הנה מה טוב לי 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 לי
We may be seated.
הנה מה טוב הנה מה טוב לי 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 הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to reach this day. It really is a Shechianu moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. We never know when we're going to get to do mitzvahs, and sometimes it's on a Monday afternoon. There's a tradition that I was just sharing with Noah very briefly. Noah got a little drink of water, which is also good in terms of a mitzvah to take care of our bodies. But I mentioned that water is kind of a metaphor for Torah. Torah is often likened to water, and there's a sense that we can't do it without it. Just as human beings can't do without water, so too the Jewish people can't do without Torah. And this is partially why do we have a Torah reading on Mondays at all? Now, generally it's Monday mornings, but why do we have that is because we need Torah. We can't go with too many days without having Torah. And so our ancestors said we need to have several times during the week where we read Torah. And Mondays was actually one of those days. It was also one of those days that we read Torah because it was a market day. So many people came into town and congregated together like we're doing, and they would read Torah on those days. But just in that same way that there's a thirst not only for water but also for Torah, so too Noah, we have thirsted for this moment, and even more so when it was a little bit delayed, and we're just all thrilled to be able to come and celebrate with you. I just want you to take a moment. I know you're gonna do just a bit of reading here in a moment. But before you do, I just want you to take a moment to see everyone here. Everyone who's even delayed, we all came out to see you, and we love you, and we're always rooting for you. So we're going to begin our Torah reading. It's in the Etz Chaim, and we're traveling back in time to Bihar. So if you felt like you're in the wilderness, well, come back to the mountain with me here on page 742, with Parshas Bachar. And it starts at the very top with verse 25.
V'ya'azor v'yagen v'yashia l'chochosim bo v'nomar Amen. Hakol avogad Eloheinu v'chavod l'Torah Yamod Kohen Baruch Shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael b'kedushato
ואתם מבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום.
V'yatem hadvekim b'Elohechem chayim kolchem hayom.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natshanu et shorasho. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki amu chachicham umachar me'achuzato uva go'alo hakarov elav ve'gal emim korachiv ve'ish ki lo yelo goel ve'asig ayado umatzak legulato ve'chishav et shnei mimkaro ve'hashiv et ha'odef le'ish asher machar lo ve'shav le'achuzato ve'im lamatzah yado de'hashiv lo ve'aya mimkaro ve'yad hakaneoto ad shnat hayovel yetzeh ba'yovel ve'shav le'achuzato.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notav dochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Yasher Koach. Noah did such a beautiful job reading, and she'll read the next two aliyot as well. In this last aliyah, right, we learn about how for our ancestors, right, the Torah tells the story of the Jewish people leaving Egypt, right, and making their way to the Promised Land. And in the Promised Land, each and every person has an achuzah, a Hebrew word for a holding. They have a land that is meant just for them, a land holding, a space of their own in the Promised Land. Right? And this last aliyah describes what happens when people come into difficulties and they have to sell part of their land. Right? There is a process by which the land is redeemed, by which the land returns back to its proper owner. Right? And the family and community supports this process, and eventually the Jubilee year as well. But I think it's a really beautiful idea, especially for a day like today, that each and every one of us has our own holding, our own place in the community, our own seat, you could say. And today Noah takes her seat as a bat mitzvah. We continue with our second aliyah, page 742, verse 29.
Yamod Sheni. Touch the spot there. Very good.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'i השכים קורבית מושב עיר חומה, והייתה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו, ימים תהיה גאולתו. ואם לא יגאל עד מעלו שנת תמימה, וקם הבית אשר בעיר אשר לא חומה, לצמיתות לקונן אותו לדורותיו, לא יצא ביובל. ובתי החצרים אשר אין להם חומה סביב, על שדה הארץ יחשב גאולה תהיה לו ביובל יצא. והרי הלוויים בתי הרי אחוזותם, גאולת עולם תהיה ללוויים. ואשר יגאל מן הלוויים, ויצא ממקור בית, והעיר אחוזתו ביובל, כי בתי ערי הלוויים היא אחוזתם בתוך בני ישראל. ושדה מגרש עריהם לא ימכר, כי אחוזת עולם הוא להם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher Koach. Our third aliyah can be found on page 743, verse 35.
Yamot Shlishi. Touch the spot there.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu min kol ami v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
אמן. וכי ימוך אחיך ומטה ידו עמך, וחזקת בו גר ותושב וחי עמך. אל תיקח מאיתו נשק ותרבית, ויראת אלוהיך, וכי אחיך עמך. את כספך לא תיתן לו בנשך, ובמרבית לא תיתן עליך. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, לתת לכם את ארץ כנען, להיות להם לאלוהים.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Yasher Koach. This last aliyah, I think, really cuts to the core of what we're doing today and what the Torah is all about, and also to what Noah is doing. I was looking at the program last week, that Noah's Bat Mitzvah service project is to support the Jewish family service here in Cincinnati, right? And the program says the JFS, it works to help as many people as possible meet their basic needs, right? To help people find the food, the water, the shelter that they need. And that's exactly what we find in our Torah reading that we just had, right? It describes verse 35. If someone, your brother, your sister in your community is undergoing a hard time, right? We do whatever we can to hold them up, to not let them fall down, to hold them up, to strengthen them, because we're responsible for one another, right? We offer them interest-free loans, which is something that Hebrew loan societies, the Jewish communities have offered for hundreds of years. And this goes all the way back to the Torah. This goes all the way back to the beginnings of our people, and Noah is continuing that legacy in her service project. We continue with our fourth aliyah, page 744, verse 39.
Yamdu Rivi. You guys are going to touch the spot right there. I'll get in there. All right.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
V'yemucha chicha imach v'nimchar lach lo tavod bo avodat aved v'sachir b'toshav yihye aved ad imach ad shenat ayovel ya'avod imach v'yatsa me'imach hu uvanav imo v'shav el mishpachto v'yachuzad avotav yoshav yashuv ki avodaihem asher hotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yimcharu mimekeret el aved lo tirdavo beforech v'yoreta me'arohecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nasa b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Yasher Koach. In this last Aliyah, these verses actually are hard to read, right? It speaks about conditions that cause the need for Noah's service project, of people becoming impoverished. And this Aliyah describes when someone has to basically become an indentured servant, or has to sell their labor to someone else. But it describes that condition for us is temporary, right? That condition can never be permanent because we're meant, as all people are, to be free, right? We're meant to be free to serve God, the verses say. We're meant to be free to choose this way of life, to choose the Torah and the mitzvot, which is what, again, we celebrate on this bat mitzvah. We continue with our fifth Aliyah, verse 44, page 744, and Maya, Noah's sister, will read for us.
Tamod Chamishit.
Baruch et Adonai haborach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai haborach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'avdecha v'amatcha asher yulach me'et hagoyim asher sivotechem mehem tiknu eved v'ama v'gam mibnei hatashavim hagarim emechem mehem tiknu mimash b'chatem asher amechem asher holidu v'artechem v'hayu lechem l'achuzah v'yinachaltem otam livnechem acharechem l'reish et achuzah le'elam b'hem ta'avodu v'ahechem b'nei Yisrael ish v'achiv lo tardevo b'farech.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Yasher Koach, our sixth Aliyah reading, page 744, verse 47.
Yamdu Shishi. Okay, you're down here. Get close to the spot.
Baruch et Adonai haborach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. V'chi tasig yad ger v'toshav imach umach achicha imo v'nimkar lager toshav imach
או לעקר משפחת גר, אחרי נמכר. גאולה תהיה לו, אחד מאחיו יגאלנו, או דודו, או בן דודו יגאלנו, או משאר בשרו, ממשפחתו יגאלנו, או השיג ידו ונגאל, וחישב עם קונהו משנת הימכרו לו עד שנת היובל, והיה כסף ממכרו במספר שנים, כי מסחיר יהיה עמו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koach. Our seventh reading, page 745, verse 51.
Yamdu Shvi'i.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bocher banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. אמות רבות בשנים, לפיהן ישיב גאולתו, מכסף מגנתו, ומעט נשאר בשנים, עד שנת היובל וחישב לו כפי שניו, ישיב את גאולתו כשכיר שנה, בשנה יהיה עמו, לא ירדנו בפרך לעיניך, ואם לא גאל באלה ויצא בשנת היובל, הוא ובניו עמו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher Koach. This is now one of my most favorite parts of the Bat Mitzvah celebration. When our kids are little, we read to them. And at a certain point, they learn to read on their own. And here, Noah is going to be reading from our Holy Torah in Hebrew for her parents. This is on page 745, verse 55.
Yamdu Acharon.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki bnei Israel avadim avadaihem asher hotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, lo tasu lachem elilim, ufesel matzavad lo takimu lachem, ve'even maskid, lo tidnu bartechem, lishachavot aleha, ki ani Adonai Elohechem. Et shabtotai tishmoru mikdashi tirau, ani Adonai.
Baruch Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We rise for Chatzi Kadesh. Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabba, Yomad Yivrach, Tev Yamlich Malchutei, Bechayechon Uv'yomechon, Uv'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael, Bahagala, Bahagala, Uv'izmahan Karev Yimeru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yanaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesham b'rechu leila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amihiran b'yarama v'meru. Amen. At this time, we'll take a moment to say prayers for healing for those in need. If you know of someone who's in need of healing, then when I pause during this prayer, please quietly say the name of the person or the people whom you are thinking of. Mishaberach Avatena Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'imoteno Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarech v'rapeh et kol hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleim Lachas Yigam L'Rapatam Yishlach Nehem Meher Refuah Shlema Min HaShemayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf Hashtag Balav Izman Karev Eno Ma'ar. Amen. May the Holy One send healing of body, healing of spirit. May the Holy One grant courage to all who are ill and strength to those who support them. And let us say, Amen. Well, now we've reached a very exciting time. We're welcome to be seated, as in just a moment, Noah will be officially called up during her bat mitzvah celebration as a bat mitzvah.
Tamod, bat mitzvah, Noah Keneret bat Baruch v'Rav Shena, Mavtir chazak, Yivrechecha Hashem Etzion, Yirei b'tuv Yerushalayim. Yivrechecha Hashem Etzion, Kol yemei chayecha, Urei banim lefanecha, Shalom Yisrael. Urei banim lefanecha, Shalom Yisrael. Let's find it again. Close this up for Torah.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ki li bnei Yisrael avadim avadaihem asher tzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim ani Adonai Elohechem lo tasu lachem elilim ufesel matzava lo takimu lachem ve'even maskit lo tidnu bartzachem lishachavot aleha ki ani Adonai Elohechem Et shavtotai tishmaru mikdashi tirau ani Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
We rise at this time for the lifting of the Sefer Torah.
Tamod, Hamagbia Tamod, Hagolelet.
Torah,
Biad Moshe.
Vezot haTorah hashesam Moshe. Vezot haTorah. Vezot haTorah hashesam Moshe. Vezot haTorah. Lifnei Bnei Yisrael. Vezot haTorah. Al pi Adonai be'ad Moshe. Vezot haTorah. We may be seated. The Haftorah is found on page 759. 759. It's one that, Noah, I was really excited to talk with you about. We had shared a lot about this Haftorah. It is not what she's going to be speaking about, however, so just wait for it. But we talked about that it's kind of an incredible Haftorah. In the Haftorah, the Babylonians are about to crush not only Judea, but also Jerusalem itself. And at this time, Jeremiah gets a message. He's, of course, in jail again. And here, while he's in jail, he was in jail, by the way, for going and saying, don't go up against Babylon, we're going to get crushed. And for that treasonous remark, which was in fact true, he was thrown in jail. So he gets this message from God to invest in the land. He's supposed to go and buy a land. This is a big question for him, because who wants to, there is the whole, buy low, sell high, that type of thing, but who wants to invest in land when it's about to be conquered by Babylon? And he really can't believe it, as you'll see by the end of the Haftorah. In particular, he's told to write up a whole bill of sale and sign it and to put it in a clay jar, because this will be important in the future. Because at some time in the future, even though it's hard to fathom, especially in the time in which he lived, as it says, houses, fields, and vineyards shall again be purchased in this land. And of course, in our time, they did find some clay jars with some Hebrew text, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and our people have returned to the land. And just as, Noah, we've been able to unearth various treasures in Eretz Yisrael, I hope that you too, when you go, will continue always to unearth various treasures and find deeper meaning for you as well. The Haftorah begins on page 759.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nbiim tovim, v'ratzav v'divrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habacher b'torah Moshe avdo, u'v'Yisrael amo, u'v'nbiei ha'emet v'tzedek. Vayomer Yirmiyahu hayad varnai lemor, hinech hanamel ben shalom dodcha bai lecha lemor, knei lecha et tzadi asher banatot ki lecha mishpat hagula liknot. Vayvoilai Chanamel ben dodi kidvarnai chatzar matara. Vayomer elai kneina et tzadi asher banatot asher be'eretz binyamin, ki lecha mishpat hayerusha ulecha hagula knei lach. Vayda kidvarnaihu v'knet hasadeh me'et, Chanamel ben dodi asher banatot, v'eshkalalo et hakesef shiva shkalim v'sara hakasef. ויכתוב בספר ויחתום ביד עדים ואשכול הכסף במאזניים ויקח את ספר המקנה את החתום המצווה והחוקים ואת הגלוי ויתן את ספר המקנה אל ברוך בן נריה בן מחסיה לעיני חנמאל דודי לעיני העדים הכותבים בספר המקנה לעיני כל היהודים היושבים בחצר מטרה וצווה את ברוך לעיניהם לאמור כה אמר על הצבאות אלוהי ישראל לקוח את הספרים האלה את ספר המקנה הזה ואת החתום ואת ספר הגלוי הזה ונתתם בכלי חרס למען יעמדו ימים רבים כי כה אמר על הצבאות אלוהי ישראל עוד ייכנו בתים ושדות וכרמים בארץ הזאת ואתפלל אל אדוני אחרי תיתי את ספר המקנה אל ברוך בן נריה לאמור אדוני אלוהים הנה אתה עשית את השמיים ואת הארץ בכוחך הגדול ובזרועך הדויה להיפלא ממך כל דבר עושה חסד לאלפים ומשלם עוון אבות אל חיק ביניהם אחריהם האל הגדול הגיבור ענת צבאות שמו גדול העצה ורב העליליה אשר עיניך פקוחות על כל דרכי בני אדם לתת לאיש כדרכיו וכי פרימה עליו אשר שמת אותו ומופתים בארץ מצרים עד היום הזה ובישראל ובאדם ותעשה לך שם כיום הזה ותוצא את עמך את ישראל מארץ מצרים באותות ומופתים ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה ומורא גדול ותיתן להם את הארץ הזאת אשר נשבעת לאבותם לתת להם ארץ זבת חלב ודבש ויבואו וירשו אותה לא שמעו בקולך ובתורתך לא הלכו את כל אשר ציווית להם לעשות לא עשו ותקראתם את כל הרע הזאת הנה הסוללות באו העיר ללכתה והעיר ניתנה ביד הגסדים הנלחמים עליה מפני החרב והרעב והדבר ואשר דיברת היה בינך רואה ויחתה אמרת אלי אלוהים קנה לך השדה בכסף ועדים והעיר ניתנה ביד הגסדים ויהי דבר אלי אל ירמיהו לאמור הנה אני אדוני אלוהי כל בשר הממני יפלא כל דבר Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol olamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber u'mkayem, shechol devarav emet v'tzedek. Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ne'emanim devarecha, v'devar echad midvarecha, achor lo yashuv rekam, ki hamelech ne'eman, Berachaman atah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hane'eman bechol devarav. Rachem al Tzion ki hiveit chayinu, v'laluvat nefesh toshia bimhera b'yameinu. Baruch atah Adonai, mesamech Tzion bebaneha.
Amen.
Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu b'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha u'v'malchut Beit David meshichecha b'mhera yavo ve'yagel liveinu al kiso lo yeshev zar ve'lo yinchalu od acharim et kvodo ki v'shem kodshecha nishbata lo shelo yichvei nero le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Magen David.
Amen. Yasher koach. We don't have that last part about Shabbat because it's not Shabbat. So I'm really excited, actually, again, for this next part. Noah, it was wonderful working with you and speaking with you about your drash, your teaching for today. It's an insightful, thoughtful drash, and we would expect nothing less. Thank you, Noah, for sharing words of Torah with us.
Well, I can't really say Shabbat Shalom anymore, so happy Monday. Recently, we celebrated the holiday of Shavuot, where we recounted the Israelites receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. The Torah gives us a lot of advice on how to do the right thing. And even though the Torah gives us all these commandments, it rarely gives the reasoning behind them and why it is the right thing. My Torah portion, Bahar, lists many laws, but one thing I found is that it lists the what, but not the why. This prompted me to look at other times in the Torah when the reason why is not given. One of the many stories that stuck out to me was the story of the tree of knowledge. We all know how that one goes. God told Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge. They did anyway. But we rarely talk about why God didn't want them to eat from the tree of knowledge. Wasn't knowledge a good thing? Eating from the tree seemed to bring on many punishments for our ancestors, including mortality. But I believe that this wasn't actually a punishment. Rather, Adam and Eve simply became aware of their newfound knowledge. They were growing from being children into being adults. They realized what the world was really like, and they had to learn to deal with it. Some might think that all of these lessons are a punishment, but they are really just a part of life. After all, people can't stay children forever. At some point, we all have to grow up and become aware of the world around us. When I think of myself becoming a bat mitzvah, I think about it as me eating from the tree of knowledge. This is a new beginning. Not only am I learning many new things, but I'm starting to question things that were a given when I was younger. Part of growing and advancing is starting to question the things around you. You might have just believed something when you were little, but now it's time to question. Why is it like this? How did this come to be? Should it stay this way, or is it time for things to change? Just because we've been doing things a certain way all along doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. If everyone lived by things done in the past, there would never really be a future. If we live blindly by following the rules given to us, then when do we really start living? No one ever made history by living in the past. This isn't to say that the past isn't important. It's meant to be a suggestion for building the future, not an unchangeable verdict on how to live our lives. We can't make history without making a change. So part of growing up is thinking about the past, questioning, and then taking matters into our own hands. Taking matters into our own hands is one of the main things that advances society. In a way, being human is one long cycle of growing up. We are constantly learning new things and changing the way we think based on it. As we get older, some things certainly stay the same, but many things change. For me, becoming a bat mitzvah is a good time to mark the significant change. I'm now 13 and I'm entering a new stage in my life. While many of my core values stay the same, some of my interests and the way I see the world have changed, like how I can listen to something educational without losing interest within a minute. Change is what keeps humanity going.
it is contributing to slow progression towards a perfect world. As long as we keep learning and adjusting, we continue this long cycle of growing up. Even in the Torah, everything is still in progress. The laws reflect their time, and a lot of them are outdated. They were meant for what was happening then, but society has gone through many shifts, so we need to re-examine the laws in the Torah and think about how to bring them into the present day, or better yet, the future. One example of a practice that was outdated was that only 2 generations ago, girls weren't allowed to read from the Torah at their bat mitzvahs. While some branches of Judaism still have this in place, many branches revise this practice to fit our society today. This is why I was able to read Torah in our congregation this evening. A lot of times you see things and you think, this is the 21st century. Why are we still doing this? As a bat mitzvah, I start to grow up and try to bring the past into the present day and into the future. But I'm not doing this alone. One of the core parts of Judaism is that we are a part of a community working together to make positive change in our world. One organization that seeks to make this positive change is JFS, Jewish Family Service. As part of my bat mitzvah, I'm giving money to support JFS. Their website says that they seek to enrich our community by providing services to individuals and families who need them. The Torah tells us to love everyone, and JFS reflects that by helping people in need. I'm very grateful to become an adult in this community, and I want to say thank you to everyone here. I want to say a special thank you to Mitch Cohen for helping me put this entire ceremony together, to Rabbi Smolkin for helping me write my speech, and to Rabbi Chadel for his support, to all of my out-of-town guests for making a big effort to come here, to my Rockburn teachers for providing a Jewish and Hebrew foundation that made this whole process a lot easier, to my grandparents, Emmy and Sambo, for keeping me involved in our family's traditions, to Grandpa for making visits to Oberlin extra special, and to Grandma for knitting my talit and involving me in the process. To my parents for helping me practice and, keeping me alive for 13 years, and to my sister Maya for always being there for me. Happy Monday.
Simen Tavo, Maza Tavo, Maza Tavo, Simen Tavo, Maza Tavo, Maza Tavo, Simen Tavo, Maza Tavo, Maza Tavo, Simen Tavo, Yehelanu, 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 Hulecho Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Hulecho Yisrael, Yehelanu, Lecho Yisrael, Yehelanu, Lecho Yisrael. Mazel tov. Thank you for your insightful teaching, and now we'd like to give you something. So we have a few gifts for you, Noah. So from Perry Pitzla and our brotherhood, we have the Etz Chaim. You did such a beautiful job on your readings that we want you to keep going. From Heidi Weissman and our sisterhood, we have a siddur literally with your name on it, just for you. Thank you. And of course, so that you can go to our USY youth conventions and sing along, we have one of our benchers. And finally, we have the Gift of Israel Award from the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati. And again, we hope that you continue to deepen your connections with Israel. So one of the verses that you read stood out. Hopefully sounds familiar to you. Ki li v'nei Yisrael avadim avadayhem asher hotzeti etchem meretz Mitzrayim ani Adonai Elohechem. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So that's the beginning of your maftir, and in that verse, it's this fascinating statement that God brought us out from Egypt, and we weren't supposed to serve Pharaoh, but we were supposed to serve God. And part of becoming a bat mitzvah is about service. We're grateful, of course, for your service here, beautiful davening, beautiful Torah readings, for your giving to Jewish family service. there's so much that you have to give Noah. Going and working with you as we prepared for your drash and all of the wonderful, insightful questions that you asked about the Torah readings and the Haftorah. You have so much to give, and you can serve in so many different ways. And this is just the beginning of that. I hope that you always keep that spirit of questioning and insight and kind of wondering, why are we doing this again? And what makes sense to kind of deepen and continue and enrich, and what makes sense to maybe pause or put away for the moment. So I hope that you always have that part of you where you look deeply at things and question about things. And as you're doing that and using your tremendous intellect to look at the world and continue to change and grow, I also want to mention another aspect that has to do with service. Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha, bo lefanav birnana. That always throughout your Jewish journey, that you take with you joy, that you continue, when it's not your bat mitzvah celebration, to come up and to daven and go and read Torah. And there, just for the joy, just for the love of it, we certainly want to see you up here again and again and help go and be with you as you're serving God. Your community is always rooting for you, will always support you. We love you so much, and Mazel Tov.
Dearest Noah, what a privilege and a blessing it is to stand with you today on this bima. Dad and I are so very proud of the work you've put into preparing for this day. Way back when, around 4 years ago, when you were 9 and Dad and Maya and I were setting Maya's bat mitzvah date, you looked up your 13th birthday. Realizing it would fall on Shabbat, you knew right then and there you wanted to have your ceremony on your birthday. And exactly as you prepared and planned for it, so it almost went. And then it didn't. And that was a hard conversation Dad and I had to have with you that Thursday morning, when we realized we could not actually celebrate your bat mitzvah that Shabbat. And what you did next was so impressive. You took the information and quickly distilled down and prioritized the essential elements. And you told us what you did want. You did want to have a bat mitzvah celebration in person. You did not want to be on Zoom. And you wanted it to happen as soon as possible. And that was really helpful for all of us to make the necessary next steps. And we're so grateful to you and to this entire community, especially to the rabbis and to your tutor, Mitch, and to the entire Adath Israel team, and all of our guests and friends and family for rolling with the changes. It really is something special. And this experience is an example of how you go about a lot of things in your life. When you set your sights on a goal, you don't see obstacles, you simply get to work. You are such a fun person to have as a daughter. You are brave, you persevere, you ponder, and you care, and you're really funny. This year at the start of Walnut Hills, you discovered that you were a theater kid. Now, this was kind of news to me because until now, while I know you have a lovely voice, I hadn't really seen you take the center stage that often. But when you decided to audition for the school musical, you made a point of going upstairs to your room after school every day and practicing not just singing, but belting. From that little body of yours, a volume of music came out that I never knew existed. You learned the music for your audition piece, and you practiced, and you practiced, and you even took advice given to you by your great aunt Carol and by our friend and professional singer Mary Southworth. Noah, you are also compassionate in a quiet and consistent way. We love that you notice the new kid at school and befriend them. When Sophie moved to town and you came home from Rockburn and mentioned you had sat next to the new girl because that's what you should do when someone's new, to your delight, you told us that you realized you had just met someone who's going to become a great friend. And so you two are until this day. And even at the beginning of this past year, when your teacher pulled you aside to suggest you have lunch with someone who hadn't yet found her people during your shared lunch bell, you went ahead and had lunch together, and as it turned out, you two have formed quite the bond. It seems that in your experience, kindness towards the other comes back to you twofold. In the Torah portion of Bahar in Leviticus, the portion you prepared introduced us to the concept of the Jubilee year. And you and I were discussing this. It's a sort of reckoning where every 50 years the land is supposed to be returned to its original owners. As the way you said it, it's sort of a reset. It is an idealism manifested. It's a way to prevent generations of entrenched poverty. It was a vision that the Torah had that was both optimistic and pragmatic. Noah, you are somebody who is optimistic and pragmatic. You are grounded in reality while also being a dreamer. You see possibilities and you see opportunities. You've also discovered choir this year, and you've already mapped out how to continue with it and even travel near and far for choir competitions, should the opportunities arise. When something is challenging or scary, you just take a deep breath, and you don't complain, and you just do it. Whether it's getting right back on your bike after that nasty spill on the rim of the Grand Canyon, when you washed off your scrapes and started pedaling again through the snow, or going from a full day of school to a 4-hour play rehearsal to a 2-hour bat mitzvah rehearsal. You maintain your composure and your cheerfulness and a grit that I really admire. You think a lot about this world, what could be better, what is unfair, and what is unjust. You taught us today how it's okay to grow up, to increase our awareness about the world, and to be open to change. As you become a bat mitzvah, as you lead our community in services, we wish for you to maintain your sense of self and your groundedness, that your family, your sister, your Emmy and your Sampo and grandma and grandpa, that your Jewish tradition help you stay rooted so that you can go forth and flourish. When you can have the confidence that you can change the world. We also wish that you continue to develop your inherent gifts of curiosity, compassion, optimism, to care for the world around you, and to make the community a little bit better because you're living in it. Mazel tov. We love you.
You didn't cry.
I didn't cry.
Congrats.
Before I begin, I just want to add, on behalf of our entire family, our just genuine warm thanks. There's so many people here in person, so many people participating virtually, and we feel your love and support. Having to postpone the bat mitzvah, we've said many times, was not a tragedy. It was a disappointment. It was stressful. But that's part of the lesson, was that when you're part of a community, you have the love and the support of that community. And all of you who are here in person and virtually, we feel that love and support. And we know many of you were in synagogue on Saturday, in church on Sunday, and I'm sure we can get dispensation or something on the way out, for... Noah, that was beautiful. You're doing a great job today. Thank you. Your mom and I are so proud of you for the hard work and preparation that you undertook to get ready for this bat mitzvah, and more globally, for just the wonderful human being that you already are. You're the perfect embodiment of someone who grows and changes with each passing year, and yet retains the fundamental characteristics that emerged when you were born. Your passions and interests have evolved over time, but your core inner being has remained remarkably constant. And there are just a few things that I'm focusing on today on your bat mitzvah about that. First, your innate personality is this incredible combination of sweetness and ferocity. You have the capacity to be loving and affection, and you have a certain stare that conveys the notion that you're not someone who should be trifled with. As one of your favorite t-shirts says, underestimate me, that'll be fun. And it's the rare human being who can be counted upon for a warm hug when it's needed most, but who can also provide backup in a dark alley if the situation gets dicey enough. And I'm in awe of your ability to balance those traits. It served you very well. Your kindness has made you very likable, and your toughness has made you very resilient. And in a world that's still full of a lot of challenges, you're going to need both those qualities to succeed. You're a very curious person, and I'm just so glad you focused on that yourself in your drash. As you've gotten older, that's shifted from childlike wonder to a genuine intellectual curiosity. And I love how you pay attention to and sometimes insert yourself into conversations that Mom and I are having about grown-up things. And I love that you challenge us when we start to tell you what we're talking about to say, well, what do you mean by that? Give me an example of that. And it really shows that you're truly interested in learning about whatever the topic is. And this will also serve you incredibly well as you make your way through the world. You also happen to be ingeniously funny. Ever since you were a toddler, you've been coming up with some of the greatest lines that most of us could only dream about writing. You have a sharp and clever wit, as well as a sense of mischief that is so playful and so far hasn't gotten you into too much trouble. And you're also just full of surprises, like that time when you were 5 years old and you had to stay home from school one day because you were sick. And so to cheer you up, I thought I'd take you on a few errands with me, and I knew how much you loved our favorite donut shop, so I thought we'd, go for a couple of donuts. And as I pulled into the shopping plaza with a donut shop nestled in between the grocery store and a PNC bank, I said, hey, no, why don't you take a look over there? What do you think we're about to go do? And without missing a beat, your little 5-year-old eyes lit up and you said, we're going to rob the bank. There are lots of other great qualities that I could describe. You're a great traveler, always up for an adventure, and you never complain about the itinerary. You've got a great memory for details, and I love the precision with which you talk about your own life experiences. And you project such joy when you're with your sister and with your cousins and your friends and your grandparents, your aunts and uncles. We put together a little slideshow for later tonight, and it was striking to see how many photos there are of you and Maya and how much the love that you have for each other really comes through, and you know how much that means to Mom and to me. But the point of these remarks is not to simply recount all of your positive attributes. Our job here today, as Mom said so well, is to tell you how much we love you and to offer a prayer for you, our wish and hope for what you will do going forward, coming out of this bat mitzvah. And one of the biggest changes we have seen in you, especially since you embraced the theater, is you've grown from being someone who was often inward-facing into someone who now faces outward. And Mom and I want to encourage that. You have so much to offer the world. Thank you, Rabbi Smolkin, for saying that and for encouraging that too. And our prayer is that you find meaningful and fulfilling ways to share your gifts with others. So especially on your bat mitzvah, we're here to remind you that being part of this Jewish family, this Jewish community, your social network that you've formed through Rockwer and CYJ, your friends, will always help you do that. So don't forget to lean on those networks, but also don't forget to contribute to those networks and to find ways to help other people, because that's what going through the world is all about. Mazel tov, sweetie. We're so happy. We're so proud of you. Mazel tov. We love you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Now we're going to continue back in the service now. We're on page 176. 176 as we continue back in the Torah service with Yakum Porkan.
Yakum Porkan min Shemaya. Ve'yishlach bracha, bracha ve'atzlacha, v'chol ma'aseh yirehem. Ve'yishlach bracha, bracha ve'atzlacha, v'chol ma'aseh yirehem. Im kol Yisrael achehem ve'chayotehem, v'nomar amen.
We're welcome to rise at this point as we turn to page 177 for our prayer for our country.
A prayer for our country. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. The prayer for the state of Israel, page 178.
Avinu Sheba Shemayim, Sur Yisrael v'go'alo, Barak et Medinat Yisrael, Shethei Reshit Smihat Ge'ulatenu, Hazek Elecha Ba'eret, Hastacha Ufros Alecha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlak Orha V'amitha L'rasheha Sareha V'yochatzecha V'taknem Ba'etza Tova Milfanecha Hazek et Yedei Meginei Eretz Kachenu V'halim Eloheinu She'ua Re'atzecha Ba'etza Tatrem V'natata Shalom Ba'eretz V'shemchat Olam L'yoshvecha Nomar Amen.
Amen. Beautiful. A prayer for peace is found in the middle of page 178. Kathy? And we'll read responsively on page 178 in the middle. It's right up
there. Aha. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world.
Beautiful.
For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or to destroy. We have come into being to praise, to labor, to love. Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture, I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. Let justice and righteousness flow like a mighty stream. Let God's peace fill the earth as waters fill the sea. And let us say, Amen.
We may be seated as we continue on page 181 with Ashrei.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yalucha Selah.
Ashrei Am Shekacha Lo, Ashrei Am Sharanai Elohav.
Tila LeDavid, Aramim Chalo Hai HaMelech, V'Barcha Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
B'chol Yom Avarcheka, V'ala Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
Gadol Adonai Melal Meod, V'ligdulato En Cheker.
Dor L'dor Yishabach V'asecha.
Hadar Kevod Hodecha, U'v'divrei Niflatecha Asicha.
V'ezus Nortecha Yomeru.
Zecher Rab Tuvcha Yabiu, V'tzidkatcha Yiranenu.
Chanun V'rachu Maranoi, Erchapan Ugdol Chased.
Tov Adonai L'kol, V'rachama B'kol Masav.
Yoducha Adonai Kol Masecha, V'chasidecha Yivarchucha.
Kevod Malchutcha Yomeru, Gvuratcha Yidaberu.
L'hodia Livnei Adam Gvurotav, V'chvod Ador Malchuto.
Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim, U'memshaltecha B'chol Dor V'ador.
Somech Adonai L'chol Hanoflim, V'zokev L'chol HaKfufim.
Einei Kol Elecha Yisaberu, V'ata noten lahem et achlam beito.
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסי בכל מעשיו.
הרוב עלי לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון ירעיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל רשעים ישמיעם.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם.
Hallelujah. Page 183, hallelujah.
Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav Shemo levado.
Ve'arem keren le'amo tehila lechol chasidav Israel am karovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah, amen, amen. Am Yisrael chai, 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 oh, Davinu chai. Oh, Davinu chai. Oh, Davinu chai. Oh, Davinu chai. Amen, amen. Am Yisrael 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 chai. Page 184.
Uvnucho yomar. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha me'ushar deracheya darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom hashivenu
We may be seated, and at this time I'm excited for Dara Wood to come up.
Come on up. Noah, I cannot begin to tell you how touching and meaningful it is to be asked to present you with your certificate this evening. What an honor to be up here with you today. You, Noah, for me, were a little bit of a challenge at first. Now hear me out. I have always considered myself to be pretty decent with children, especially the young ones. And you were the cutest little thing, but you played hard to get with me for a bit. You were quiet and would hide behind mom and dad as I tried to get you to interact with me, and honestly, just to get you to like me. But the more you hid behind them, it only made me want to work harder and harder to get through. So I kept at it, being silly, trying to make you laugh, and it worked. Soon it was smiles and giggles from behind the legs, then you came out a little more, and eventually it was hugs and chatting with you. I may have used some candy in there too, but I was not above bribery to begin to build a relationship with you that I knew that we would have. I would say that it all worked out, and it was worth every minute of it. Look at us now up here. I feel so blessed that I've gotten to know you, Noah. You are such a sweet, thoughtful, smart, kind young lady. Watching you grow has been quite a pleasure. I've always been so impressed that a young child that was a little bit on the shy side would get up in front of people at family service and do something like read from the Torah. You were one of, if not the youngest child to read from the Torah, and you did it like a champ. I think you were in second grade. I think it was second grade when you started to read. And then how amazing that you read in the main service on Simchat Torah, Bereshit, beginning. And pretty sure you even made Lou Jacobs cry at the sight of seeing a child do something like that at Adath Israel on the Bima in a main service. To have the poise and the confidence to do that was amazing. I knew that you were coming out of that shell. You and Mom even sent me a recording of your chanting to show me that you knew it, and it was perfect. I found it in my emails and was listening to it this week. And it started with, "This is Noa Jaffee, and this is Bereshit." And it was beautiful. You seemed so incredibly proud of what you were doing, as you should have. Who would have thought that that shy little girl would go up and do something like that? You really became a role model for other young children to try as well. You earned your yad, or Torah pointer, quickly, although you did have to wait quite a bit to get it presented at services in here. For some reason, we had to keep putting that off. You are lucky, Noah. Your parents are very committed to their Judaism. Just look at the work that they both do. And you have an older sister that is a great role model as well in how she lives her life Jewishly. But you're now a bat mitzvah, and you now have the responsibilities to make some of those decisions about your Judaism on your own. Reading Torah, chanting Haftorah, leading services, as Rabbi Smolkin said. You have all of those skills, and I hope that you choose to come back up on this bima and others many, many times to do so. You've had a strong Jewish education at Rockhorn Academy, and I know that you know how important that is. So I hope that you continue your Jewish education at the Community Hebrew High School, which is now called Shilanu. My prayer for you, Noah, is that you continue on this path to learn more about your Jewish heritage and its history and to perform acts of kindness along the way. The Torah and our Jewish history and customs will continue to enrich your life and guide you as you make choices in life. I pray you use this all to inspire others to do good as well. It's an incredible gift that you have been given that you can give back to others by being an active participant in services anywhere. Stay involved in your Jewish community and consider becoming a madricha or teaching assistant in the religious school. I know you would be great at that. I pray that your becoming a bat mitzvah is the beginning of a lifetime of learning, mitzvot, joy, blessings, and fulfillment of your dreams. Always remember who you are and follow the wonderful example that your parents and your sister have shown you as you move forward in your life as a Jewish adult. I have seen so much growth in you already and can't wait to see what the next years bring. I am thrilled to present you with this certificate of becoming bat mitzvah on behalf of Adath Israel congregation and wish you only great things. I know that you're just getting started. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Beautiful.
I have to give her candy for that.
Mazel tov. Now, we continue now on page 204 with Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru Avotenu, Lefanecha Ektoret Hasam.
Asher koach. And we now continue, page 204 in the middle, as Zalda leads us in Amar Rabbi Elazar.
Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Hanina, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Hanina, Talmidei Chachamim, Marbim Shalom Ba'olam, Shene'emar v'chol banaich limudei Adonai, v'rav Shalom banaich, Al tikra banaich el abonaich. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, le'ohavei Toratecha, ve'ein la'amo, ve'ein la'amo, ve'ein la'amo mishol. Yehi shalom b'chelech, shalva b'arminotayich. Yehi shalom b'chelech, shalva b'arminotayich. Leman achai v're'ai, leman achai v're'ai. Adabrana, Adabrana, Shalom Bach, Leman achai v're'ai, Leman achai v're'ai, Adabrana, Adabrana, Shalom Bach, Leman Beit Adonai Eloheinu Avak Shatova, Adonai Oz Le'amo Yiten, Adonai Yevorech et Amo V'Shalom.
We rise for Aleinu, and it's wonderful to have the Ark opened by so many of Noah's teachers. Page 205.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tet gula leoser breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, v'mishachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed haaretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim li'imo, u'shchinatu zo, v'kavei meromim, hu Eloheinu le'enod, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakatu b'torato, yadata yom v'hashevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'elohim b'shamayim mi'imo, ve'al haaretz mitachat einot. Hakatsu b'soratecha Adonayim l'chelam ba'ed, v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Once the Ark is closed, we may be seated. In a moment, we'll continue with Mourner's Kaddish, which is found on page 207. Before we do, we remember those whose yard sites occur on this day. Saul Krumben, Saul Levine, 11, and Marvin Reiner. And if there are other yard sites, then please say the name of the person or the people who you're thinking of. Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 207, Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal, V'yit Gadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yalma Tivrach, Heruteh, V'yamlich Malchuteh, V'chayechon, V'yamechon, V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'galau, V'zman Kari, V'imru, Amen. Yahei Shmei Rabbah, Mivarach, Li'alam Alamei Almaya, Yit Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yit Ba'ar, V'yit Romam, V'yit Naseh, V'yit Hadar, V'yit Haleh, V'yit Halal, Shemei Dekudisha, Brechu, La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, tamiran mi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu v'ol kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'ol kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. And for all those whom we remembered, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and may all who mourn find comfort. Now, call up our president for a few brief but uplifting announcements.
Thanks, Rabbi. Shabbat, no, wrong day. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Mazel tov to Noah and your entire family. You crushed it today, and Friday night, and Saturday, and every other time you've been up here. Thank you to everyone for joining us today, whether on adathlive.com, actually live here at Adath Israel, Facebook, or our YouTube channel. Noah is now trending on YouTube. Special thanks to all participated in services, both in Hebrew and English, as well as our greeter Gilda, our Aliyah Gabbai Larry, and then all of the rabbis who also participated. If you look at the program, it's like Rabbi. As none of you really care about the announcements, and I only have 10 days left in my term, let's have a serious conversation about Noah's bat mitzvah instead. If you check the conspiracy theory websites, there are many ideas as to why it was rescheduled. They include, number one, Noah didn't want to hear my jokes during the announcements, so she postponed. This same site thought my term was up on May 31st, which is why I'm still talking. Number two, Noah wanted her bat mitzvah to last 30 plus days so we could all celebrate her for an entire month. Number three, she loved the catered food so much she wanted to eat it for 3 straight weeks, 3 meals a day, and not share it with her friends. Number four, she didn't want to share her big day with the 35th day of the Omer. She doesn't like the number 35. It had been 34 or 36. She would have gone through with it. Number five, she wanted to be the last bat mitzvah of my term. Send me out with a bang. Never. Thank you, Brian, but no. Number six, People magazine paid her to move it from Shabbos so they could get live pictures. And number seven, Us Weekly said something about a bad hair week, but I didn't click on that article. I didn't believe it to be true. I'll let you figure out which one is correct. By the way, during this process, Noah taught me my favorite COVID joke. For those of you who haven't not heard it, what's the last thing that anyone with COVID wants you to say to them? Stay positive. And now, for the last time from the Bima, the bat mitzvah gets the chance to choose the joke topic for my announcements. I shared 2 of these on her original date, so they don't count. Don't worry, Noah, I brought extra backup jokes. I believe you would call them understudies. When I asked Noah for a joke topic, without blinking, she said Broadway musicals. Without thinking, I replied, Wicked. After I thought about it for a second, I worried that this fascination was just a stage. So I asked if she wanted to put any limits on the jokes, and she said anything goes. So here goes. Did you hear the one about the mafia boss who ordered a hit on a famous Broadway actor while eating at a restaurant? No, you didn't? His order was rigatoni. By the way, the more you groan, the happier I am. All right, so how about this one? It's an oldie but a goodie, and I break it out for special events. An older woman was sitting alone at a matinee of Hamilton the first month it was open. A man next to her asked, "Is this seat empty?" And she said, "Oh yes, my husband and I got these tickets a month ago, but he just passed away." The man said, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Couldn't you find a friend or a relative to come with you today?" She said, "Oh no, they're all at the Shiva."
Oh.
One more, are you done? All right. This one hits a little close to my heart. Only a third of it. Did you hear about the dilemma facing the vegan CrossFit guy who was at the opening performance of Hamilton? He couldn't figure out what to brag about first. All right. Mazel tov again to Noah. Everyone here is cordially invited by the Jaffee family to the JCC, where the good times will continue. Hope you all can join. And once again, starting at 5 plus 2, which makes 7. So you got to stall for like another 18 minutes. I can talk some more. Or I could say, Mazel tov, Noah. You were absolutely fantastic. Happy Monday.
Thank you, Josh. Is David Harris here? And if so, can he stand up? Where's David? There's David. Okay, David Harris is performing a unique, it's really it's an honor and a blessing. If you are a student and you want to get to the Jade, but don't have a way of getting there, David is kindly coordinating groups of students so that they can safely get to the JCC for the rest of the party. So please see that gentleman. He will be out there if you need a lift. And if you're not a student or you were a student at a prior time in your life, go and say hi to David as well. I'm going to invite the whole Jaffee family up as we turn to page 75 in our prayer book. And we're all welcome to rise for this, and we can join together for the priestly blessing. And we'll say this, first we're going to do the English on the left side, on page 75 on the left, at the very bottom, these last lines that say, may. We can recite this all together. May Adonai bless and protect you. May Adonai's countenance shine upon you, and may Adonai bestow kindness upon you. May Adonai's countenance be lifted toward you, and may Adonai grant you peace. And now in Hebrew. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'ir Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Mazel tov. We're welcome to be seated as we conclude our service this afternoon with Adon Olam, which is found on page 211. Page 211.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra le'nasa b'chesed Azoi melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado imloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoven ve'hu yeh b'tzifara ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshir lo le'achbira ve'li reshit ve'li tachlit ador ha'oz ve'hamizah ve'hu leili ve'chai go'ali v'tzor cheli ve'etzara ve'hu nisi u'manosli menat kosi be'yom ekra ve'yado af kidruchi ve'tisha
Good Monday.
Well done, Maya. Thank you for keeping your sister in check.